exist in terms of race in America. So, for example, if we know that in our criminal justice system, African Americans and whites for the same crime are arrested at very different rates, are convicted at very different rates, receive very different sentences, well, that is something that we have to talk about. But that's a substantive issue, and it has to do with how do we pursue racial justice. If I am president, I will have a civil rights division that is working with local law enforcement so that they are enforcing laws fairly and justly. But I would expect a white president or a woman president should want to do the same thing, because I believe that the pursuit of racial equality, the perfection of this union, is not just a particular special interest issue of the African American community. That is how all of us are going to move forward, and to the extent that we don't deal with those issues, those long-standing, deep-seated issues, we will continue to be hampered. We will be competing with the world with one hand tied behind our backs.
And, Wolf, the challenge is for us to address all of these issues. We obviously still have problems of gender equality. Equal pay is not yet equal.
Right.
A woman makes 77 cents on a dollar, and women of color make 67 cents. So there is a big agenda waiting for the Democratic Party. And we feel so passionately about this because we not only are running for office, but we each in our own way have lived it. We have seen it. We have understood the pain and the injustice that has come because of race, because of gender. And it's imperative that as we move forward with our campaign, we make it very clear that each of us will address these issues. You don't hear the Republicans talking about any of this. You don't hear them talking about the disgrace of a criminal justice system that incarcerates so many more African Americans proportionately than whites. You don't hear any kind of effort to help historically black colleges and universities, something that I am committed to doing in order to make it clear that these are important institutions and have led the way for so many great leaders to be where they are today. So we have a specific set of policies and priorities that are really part of who we are, as well as part of what the Democratic Party stands for.
I'm gonna let the son of the South wrap this subject up, and then we'll move on to Suzanne.
Well, I appreciate what both of them said about the transformative effect of having lived with this. I mean, I grew up, I was born here in South Carolina, grew up in South Carolina, Georgia, and North Carolina, and in my early years, I lived in the segregated South. I mean, I saw up close the impact it had on people's lives. And I saw up close the blood, sweat, and tears and lives of those, including some people who are in this audience tonight, what they went through to bring about this change. And there is a great deal, Hillary says the Republicans don't talk about it. There's some things we don't talk about either. And if you look at what's happening, my father, who I mentioned earlier, who's sitting in the audience, he raised me to believe that the men and women who worked in the mill with him were worth every bit as much as the man that owned that mill. And if we really believe that every American is of equal value, no matter who their family is, where they live, or what the color of their skin, when are we going to start living together? Because you look at what's happening. I announced my campaign from the 9th Ward of New Orleans. I think a lot of America was shocked to see those pictures coming out of the 9th Ward. And you can't pick on New Orleans. The same thing's true in many communities all over this country. I mean, we have got to, both in housing policy and economic policy and every other way, create the kind of opportunity for people to be able to move. It shouldn't just be that rich folks are able to, if they don't like their neighborhood or don't like their school or worried about crime in their neighborhood, they're the only ones that can go somewhere else. Everybody in America ought to have that chance at the same time that we're investing in a serious way to improving all of our neighborhoods.
Suzanne Malveaux.
To Senator Clinton, in New Hampshire, you said you found your own voice, but increasingly there are people who believe that it's your husband's voice that has become too loud. Congressman Clyburn earlier said today, I think he can afford to tone it down. Is there a risk that he is overshadowing your message and your voice?
Well, I think that he is very much advocating on my behalf, and I appreciate that. He is a tremendous asset. And he feels very strongly about this country and what's at stake and what our future should be. I believe that this campaign is not about our spouses. It is about us. It is about each of us individually. You know, Michelle and Elizabeth are strong and staunch advocates for their husbands, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, voters are going to have to choose among us. And I think it's fair to say that really the most important decision is who would be the best president on day one to deal with all the problems that we know are waiting for our next president. And the subsidiary question is, who can best withstand the Republicans and all that we know that is coming from them in order to win in November 2008. I believe strongly that, you know, I can make the best case for that. Obviously, my colleagues believe just as strongly. So I think that we need to keep our focus on what's at stake in the election, what the future holds, what each of us will bring to this campaign and the presidency, because ultimately it's really not about any of us. It's about the people of South Carolina. It's about the people of America. And my voice is their voice. What I want to do is take not only my 35 years of experience into the White House, but I want to take all those voices of these extraordinary Americans who come up to me and tell me their stories and give me hope and inspiration that I can do something for them, because that's what it's about for me. Politics is not a game. It is the most serious of business. We have seen that over the last 7 years. We have seen what a difference it makes when we have a president who is indifferent to and insensitive about the real life struggles of Americans. And I want to be the champion that once again gives Americans a feeling that they have a president who cares about them and can produce results for them. And that's what I intend to do.
I'm going to let both of the other senators respond. Then we'll take a quick break. But go ahead, Senator Obama.
Well, Hillary's right. All of us have extraordinarily smart and effective advocates in our spouses. And as I've said before, Hillary, I do not at all begrudge. I would expect that Bill Clinton would campaign vigorously on your behalf. You know, obviously, he's the ex-president, so you know, that means that he gets a lot of outsized attention, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's, as you said, an asset to the campaign. I have been troubled, and we already had this discussion, so I don't want to go over it again. The degree to which you know, my record is not accurately portrayed, but that is, you know, that's standard practice in some of our political battles. What I do want to focus on, though, is how important it is when you talked about taking on the Republicans. How important it is, I think, to redraw the political map in this country. And the reason I say that is that we've gone through the 2000 election, the 2004 election, both of which were disappointing elections. But the truth is that we as Democrats have not had a working majority in a very long time. And what I mean by that is a working majority that can push through the kinds of bold initiatives that all of us have proposed. And one of the reasons that I am running for president is because I believe I can inspire new people to get involved in the process, that I can reach out to independents and, yes, some Republicans who have also lost trust in their government and want to see something new. When you look at Bush and Cheney and their record, the one good thing they've done for us is they have given their party a very bad name. And that gives us a unique opportunity in this election. And what we can't do, I think, is just to take the playing field as a given. We want to expand the scope of the electorate so that we can start getting a 60% majority, more folks in the House, more folks in the Senate. And I think that's something I can do. And that's why we've seen record turnout in every election so far. I'm not taking all the credit for it. I think people are voting against George Bush. But I also think that we've inspired people who had not previously voted before, and that's what the Democratic Party has to do.
Senator Edwards?
I would just add on, it's just really important for primary voters in South Carolina and all the other subsequent primaries to understand they're not just voting in a primary. They're voting to establish what we're going to be doing next